I really had to shed a lot of layers, and in that process, I wrote the memoir. Um, and that's exposed. You can't heal when you hide. And I recognize that my pattern from childhood to becoming an adult was to always hide. And so the reason the memoir is so powerful and the reason I felt so called to write it was so that I would stop hiding. So that was a part of that.
Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Business with a servant's heart. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk on life. Our guest will share his life story. We want you to success in life. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk on life, we're gonna talk on business, you're gonna shine bright, we are gonna witness.
Shout out to my sponsors, A Mind for All Seasons. Your brain is your greatest competitive edge, so why not optimize it? Just text OPTIMIZE to 72000, 72000 for instant access to 6 quick videos that help you think faster, remember more, and stay focused longer. A big thanks to Epic App, the 4-step storytelling system I use every day to connect and to convert. Try it free. Email me at stever1961@gmail.com. That's stevr1961@gmail.com, and I'll get you the free app. Doing Business with a Servant's Heart was just named top 6 in small business marketing. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart and Life podcast, because today is going to be more about life than business. And there's a bridge between business and life. Your business falls into life, life falls into business. In this case, we're going to talk about life and how this wonderful, blessed lady, even though you're not going to think that when you hear the story, she is truly blessed because she's got the biggest heart of any guest I've ever had on this podcast. And before we get started, I'm going to start with our gratitude for today. And it's apropos. Your positivity and optimism are contagious. You bring so much joy to everyone around you. And I picked this randomly, and God or the universe, whatever you believe in, pulled this out purposely because this is my guest. Let's bring her on. Serena, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I am honored to be here, especially with you.
Yeah, and thank you. And audience, this is going to be one of those podcasts you're going to want to pull a Kleenex out. I've already been emotional. But it's life. And Serena, you said that. Hey, it's life. So start with, this is part 2 of our podcast. I thought we were going to go in a different direction, but life has pushed us this way. Start with what's happened in the past and where we are today.
Yes. So I started my life in witness protection and multiple foster homes at the young age of 5 years old. My biological father was the leader of a satanic cult, and he took my innocence before the age of 5. And there was recorders and people following us from the cult, so my mom couldn't get out. But when she finally did, she had to earn her rights back as a parent while I went into the system. And so that kind of set the stage for my life as a young little girl, little greasy blonde-haired girl. And I spent 5 years in the foster system with multiple scenarios, cruel and unusual punishment, unique and very interesting cultures when you're not exposed to those things. And then by the time that I was reunited with my mom, I was about 10 years old. And so those few years helped kind of draw me back in and really like help me evolve. But I had just gone too far in the sense of where I was rebellious by the age of, 14, 15. And I ended up leaving home and living on the streets. At the time I was using drugs. I was exposed to what you would assume when you put yourself in a dangerous environment at 16 years old. But I still enrolled myself into high school. There'd be nights where I would be sleeping on the park bench at the school across from the high school, or at the park across from the high school. And when I would hear the gates open, I would sneak into the girls' locker room and get ready and just pretend like I was a normal kid. But then I also had 3 jobs in order to try and save enough money to finally get a place to stay. So I would take the bus, because we didn't have Uber at the time, um, to get to each of my
Yeah.
jobs. And then until I finally, got on my feet, I graduated high school. Um, and I started my life. I climbed the corporate ladder, and at the age of 23, I bought my first home. And, it finally felt like everything was coming together. And that's when I met my husband, Kyle. And Kyle and I had been married for 10 years, and it was a very tumultuous marriage. There was, he had his own addictions, his own, unhealthy behaviors that led him into multiple affairs. Um, and there was this time and point where I had to recognize that forgiveness doesn't mean tolerance. And so I thought if I kept forgiving or earning or trying to help him in this process overcome some of these unhealthy behaviors, that it would allow us to grow in our marriage. But unfortunately, I started to just deteriorate my health and my body. I'm also at this point, I had been running my own business, the agency, um, and I was raising his son and then my 2 children, and trying to navigate life in the midst of all that. And finally, when I recognized that I was really breaking down, in October of 2019, I found the courage to leave my husband. And by October of 2020, he committed suicide. And so that is the recap of the first part of my story.
Yeah. And I mean, abuse, homelessness, drug addiction. Most people have one of those three or
Yeah,
multitude. You had all three. I mean, you really,
I'm an
as people,
overachiever. I
yeah,
mean,
there you go. And you're laughing. I love your attitude. You're an overachiever. Yeah, that's true. What I mean, I want to take part of that story. And go, what? You're 16. We're not the smartest at 16. We don't know
no.
a lot. How did you know to go into the school and get ready? How take buses to go to work, to find jobs on your own? Where do you think that all came from?
I think because I had really been on my own since I was 5 years old.
Okay.
Like you learn to be really scrappy, figure things out. I mean, and that was really before it was just when cell phones came out. So like we were still using pay phones at the time. So it's not like I had, access to information at my fingertips. It was all, walking into a place and asking for an application, and then standing there and filling it out and then handing it back in. It was understanding the bus routes and how to navigate that. Um, I was definitely surprised that I was able to get enrolled so quickly into school, because I was a former student of that school, that it was a lot easier. And then I was honest about my situation. And so they worked around my schedule to make sure I can finish.
And I love the mindset. I teach all the time, mentor entrepreneur, ask, ask, ask. Go in, ask. What's the worst thing going to happen? They don't give you an application, say go away. And you kept going with resilience. What do you think your mindset was at 16? Where was it at?
My mindset at 16 was, I don't need anyone. I can do this on my own. And obviously, my mindset has changed over the years.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of wisdom to know that you need people. But at that time, I was determined to prove everyone wrong. that I wasn't going to be a statistic, that I wasn't going to fail at even getting through high school. So it was determination.
Yeah, it's beautiful. What a lesson. And you're teaching me, and I'm 64. I love learning because we can use that every day in our lives because things happen all the time, not to that level, but obstacles, tragedies, problems, bad things happen. They're going to happen. Um, so you launched and you have a very successful marketing company
Yes. For
after
13
all that.
years now.
13
Yes.
years now. Look at you.
Yes.
How did you do that? Because surviving is different than launching a major marketing agency.
Of course. I went through the as what I call it, hazing in the corporate world, and climbed my way, blood, sweat, and tears up the corporate ladder. With the many environments that, looked at women at that time, especially, that we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what we were talking about. So, that was, that took a lot of, the first part of my career was really almost 17 years of experience and rising up. And I was a VP of marketing in the last position for, um, like a Fortune 5,000 company. And my mom had come to me, and she's my best friend. And she said, if you even put a quarter of the amount of work that you do into everyone else, there's no way that you wouldn't be successful. And I said, yeah, yeah, Mom, but I like a paycheck. And she said, well, if you're not going to do it for you, do it for me. And I said, you're so manipulative because you know that I'm going to do it for you, but I would never do it for myself. And so my mom actually named the agency Pulse Marketing, and I hated it for the longest time. Um, I just went with it because it was my mom's idea.
Yeah.
And what I realized through my life and through this journey is that it's because we are at the heart of creative and we pour our hearts into everything we do. So Pulse now makes so much more sense.
Yeah. And you reconcile with your mom. Let's make sure people understand that.
1,000%. My mom is
she was part of all that
amazing. Oh,
bad stuff that
yeah,
happened. Yep.
absolutely. And it was, through my journey, one thing that I've always really held on to is um, this sense of empathy, understanding that we're all human. We all make mistakes, that we all put ourselves into these unexpected experiences. And I just didn't feel like my mom should hold on to that forever. And she's such a beautiful person. Her life had completely turned around. Um, and she's the strongest person I know.
You know what you just said is so beautiful and such a lesson. Empathy in business and life is important,
Yes.
but she did the actions. She just didn't come back from all that bad stuff that happened. Go, I want to be your mom again. She proved to you by just not talking, taking the steps.
Yes.
Powerful, powerful. Well, unfortunately,
Yeah.
this story thought
I
we hit
thought when
bottom.
I thought when I
It,
finished writing my book that I can close all those chapters and that my happy ending would be right there. And it was. I finally went through the healing process as I shared. And the healing process after losing someone to suicide, especially someone that you spent 10 years of your life with, and in your mind thinking that you were trying to protect them from themselves, I really had to shed a lot of layers, and in that process, I wrote the memoir, um, and that's Exposed. You Can't Heal When You Hide. And I recognize that my pattern from childhood to becoming an adult was to always hide. And so the reason the memoir is so powerful and the reason I felt so called to write it was so that I would stop hiding. So that was a part of that. And as I was finishing the memoir, because it took me about 2 years to write, um, I met my fiance, Thomas. And just like like a light. He taught me how to love again. So he fell in love with my kids who are young adults, and just gave so much, and his generosity was just overflowing. Um, and he was my very best friend. And unfortunately, well, first let me share this. So my son, he got a scholarship to go to Harvard a few years ago, and a full scholarship, and they provide a stipend. So, Thomas and I moved my son and his fiance to Boston. And then my daughter, she's 19, she got a full women's rugby scholarship. I know. And we
Jeez.
moved her to Georgia. Then Thomas and I decided, like, let's go on a little getaway trip. And we went to Puerto Rico, and that's where he proposed to me. And so we actually went back to California, sold everything, and moved to Puerto Rico together. And that was almost 2 years ago. Um, and so then on February 20th of this year, uh, Thomas and I woke up and we went to boot camp that morning. And he was just full of so much energy and light and joy. We get back from, I mean, he was telling me that I was a tough cookie during the boot camp. And I remember in my head, I was like, I don't want to hear it. I just need to get through this. And when we got back home, I'd gotten a call, and he threw on his swim trunks and said he was going to swim some laps. And he gave me a giant kiss. And I started working, and I had kind of lost track of time. And I did start wondering why it felt like he was there longer than he should have been. And then I received a knock at my door. And in Puerto Rico, a lot of people are bilingual, but the officers that approached my door were not. And I couldn't understand what was happening, but all I knew was I'm running to the pool. And so I ran as fast as I could to the community pool area. And at this point, there's police everywhere. There's ambulance, there's neighbors that are outside. And I just fell to my knees and started like screaming because I could see his body laying on the side next to the pool. And I just didn't understand. And one of the landscapers that was working in the area had saw him doing push-ups, saw him swimming laps, and when he walked by again, Thomas was floating. And so he attempted to do CPR, but Thomas was already gone. Um, and we don't have answers, which also makes it much more frustrating. The lab results haven't come back. But whether we had answers or not, this was just the most devastating experience that I can share, because I finally thought that I'd have my happily ever after, and that I was rebuilding and I was able to continue moving forward, and it just shattered my whole world a few weeks ago. And so hopefully in my story, I can help inspire others to find the courage to share their own.
And audience, if you're listening to a recording, which you will, because we're recording this is about 3 weeks ago. This wasn't last year. 3 months ago. It was around, we'll say 3 weeks. This is fresh. And I've got to ask you, and I asked you when you told me before the show, you're smiling, you're in control. How are you doing that?
Well, it's grief is like the ocean, right? It comes in big waves, and sometimes it just knocks you on your ass and you can't see through your tears. And other times you start to like really accept some of those things that like your mind is questioning. I think for me, writing is a big part of my healing process. And I started writing. And so even though it's not something that I want to add to my book, believe
Yeah.
me, I started the writing process to understand the emotions I was feeling. And to be very honest, I felt um, like the world is betraying me for some reason. That was
Hmm.
my first initial thought. Like I felt like every time I open my heart and rebuild or love someone, that the world is taking that away from me. But the truth is after kind of, wrestling with that, yes, I may be the common denominator in two very tragic situations, but that doesn't make it my fault. It doesn't make me foolish for loving again. It means that I had courage to love again. And what a beautiful thing that is. It's a gift.
I'm sure you're hearing this a lot from people. It's truly amazing, inspiring. What would you tell people listening that are dealing with grief and death right now, or a tragedy at that level? What's some of the tips you can give them?
So the first thing I would say is wisdom is noticing when you need support and allowing others to stand beside you. My first reaction always is to withdraw and to hide and just to, shut down and isolate. And so in this process, knowing that about myself, I had to allow others in, even in the most devastating moments when I just didn't want anyone around and I wanted to be alone. Allowing others to help and support you really is a part of the healing process. So I would
So
say that would be my first
yeah, that's beautiful.
big suggestion. The other thing is to give yourself grace. We hold on to the what ifs and the whys, the why me's, and how could this happen? But the truth is that those questions are relevant in that moment, and and they are hurtful questions. They're not helping you. And so instead of getting attached to the answer to why me or why did this happen, or clinging on to that, I would say to give yourself grace to let go and to understand, to look inward. What what could I possibly learn from this? There's no way that I've gone through all these things in my life without a bigger purpose that I just don't see yet. And so grace, giving them, self self-love, self-grace are two of the biggest, parts of the healing process.
Yeah, that's beautiful because support people don't ask. And then the flip side of support is the wrong support. Oh, this just happened to my friend. That's not what you want to hear, people with grief. It's just,
Oh,
how can I
no.
support you, and walk away? You will tell me, Steve or Joe or Debbie, whoever, here's what I need. And that's what you're saying. Go to those people because it makes it easier on the people on the outside. They're dealing with
And they
something.
want to help. They want
Yes.
to help.
Yes. They have that heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And so it is hard, but it doesn't mean it has to be hard forever.
Yeah, no, that's true. Coming to the end here, and I don't know if this would be fair to ask. Do you still believe in love?
That's a hard question, but it's who I am.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe in love in so many different ways. And as much as this hurts, it's not, I'm not being hurt for loving again. I'm not being hurt for healing. we live in a fragile world where we cannot control other people's mortality. We cannot control, the outcome. And so when I think about love, I think about an overflow. And that's what I want to give to everyone around me, even if the outcome is pain.
Thank you for answering. You could have said no, and I would have been very great giving you grace. As you're saying that, I want to end with a positive note. Get beautiful children. They're what blessings. Rugby at Georgia, Harvard, one of the top schools. And your children love you. I know in our first podcast, you talked about your children. So there's love around you. Unfortunately, the love has changed and been different. And the audience, if you're listening, please love the right people. Don't enable to love, but love those people that are loving you. And eventually good things are going to happen, right?
They will. I am a firm believer that there's no reason we're going through all this life without a bigger purpose, without something.
I love that you ended with that. Name of the book again
is Exposed. You Can't Heal When You Hide.
And I'm going to do this, audience, in honor of her fiance, who I've never met, but now I feel closer to than ever. Thank you. Is the first 10 people that reach out to me or Serena and mention our podcast, I'm going to send you a book for free. You're going to have access to the book because you need to hear a story. This is the second time I've heard your story, and you motivated me a year and a half ago. As I told you, I've told your story to many, so I'm going to get the impact to others. You guys do the same thing. Subscribe to the podcast. Share this link with people that are grieving because of love or a tragedy that's happened in their life or just dealing with something. Serena has just put it out on the table, and she wants to make that impact. Right, Serena?
Yes.
Any last words?
I would say you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. And when you heal yourself, you heal the world.
Say that again.
You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. And when you heal yourself, you heal the world.
It's beautiful. Hope you wrote that down, audience. If not, just reach out. I'll get you that quote. With that being said, me and Serena thank all of you for watching or listening to this podcast. And we'll see you all in the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart and Life. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.